Folks, welcome back to another episode of Mayhem in the Midsouth. Our episode today, Deadly Friendship. So it's March 1994. Betty Bokum, she lives, again, it's an apartment in Charlotte. She's an assistant manager at the Bojangles on Central Avenue. That's the 9th of March, 1994. She didn't show up for work. So her boss makes a phone call to the Miss Bokum's apartment several times, no answer. Talks with the co-workers, no one's heard from her. They call Miss Bokum's mama, and she hadn't heard from her. Now, Miss Bokum doesn't show up for work the next day, and now the big cheese, he's starting to worry that it's not like her not to show up. The mama hadn't heard from her, and the aunt hadn't heard from her. Now, an employee drives by the apartment, check on her, knocks on the door, looks in the window, said everything looked normal. So then the regional manager fella, he calls the mama again and says, look, there's something up. So they call the police and they report her missing. So now on the 10th of March that morning, police go by the apartment. Police, he got maintenance to let them in. And she was DOA there in the apartment, face down on the bed with a towel around her neck. Now, Dr. Sullivan does the autopsy 11 March 1994. Again, there's blunt trauma. I mean, his MO pattern is just exact. Slight blunt trauma to the head, evidence of strangulation, physical signs to the face that confirmed she died by strangulation. Now, Dr. Sullivan also said it was from the number and location of the injuries to the victim is obvious that the victim had gotten into a pretty big fight with the suspect before she was killed. Now, the defendant later confessed to this homicide as well. Said he went by her apartment, knocked on the door, said he needed to use her phone. So, of course, she lets him in because, she knows him. He's a nice fella. Everybody says he's a nice fella. So, again, we got another victim, no signs of forced entry. So he said they talked for a while and then he chokes her out. Said he told her that he needs money. And he wants the alarm codes and the keys and the combination of the safe at the Bojangles. Now, according to the defendant, said it took 30 minutes to finally get the safe combination. Now, this whole time, he's applied a little chokehold to her, not enough to knock her out, but enough to let her know he's serious. So then they get in a big brouhaha and then the fight's on. Well, then he rapes her, and then he strangles her to death. He took the money out of her purse and a gold chain from around her neck. And again, it makes me wonder if the pictures of the victim, they would ask relatives about, hey, did she wear any jewelry? Is any jewelry missing? Because the police know for sure that there's a robbery involved. At least you'd think so. Obvious signs that her purse had been gone through. Now, the defendant also takes her television and he leaves in her car. Now, he sold the television for dope. Didn't say he pawned it, so he must have sold it there on the street. Well, then he goes back to the apartment to make sure the victim's dead and he takes the VCR. And then while he's in there, he wipes down the apartment. And he takes all those items and that money and he buys crack. Now, he kept the victim's car for 2 days. Then he leaves the car in a parking lot. Now, he would rue the day that he took that car. But now he told the police he wiped down the interior and he wiped down the exterior of the car, except for one thing. He forgot to wipe down the trunk lid. And what do you do when you open up a trunk and you're going to close the lid back? You put the palm of your hand on it and you close it. And that's exactly what the police recovered, was a palm print from the trunk. It is still March of 1994. Now, Brandy Henderson, she lives with her boyfriend and her 10-month-old son. Now, the 9th of March, Woods is at the apartment babysitting while Miss Henderson's going to a doctor's appointment. Now, the defendant, he goes by there because he's thinking that the boyfriend will be at work. Well, when the boyfriend answers the door, he makes up some story, says, well, I'm getting ready to leave town. See you later. Now, that evening, the boyfriend goes to work. Miss Henderson's at the apartment. Now, the boyfriend says, when I leave, Miss Henderson and the little boy are there, and that the apartment is neat and clean and the front door was locked. Now, when he comes back from work around midnight, the front door is unlocked. Items are scattered about the living room and the stereo is missing. He goes to the apartment and he checks on the little boy. The little boy's got a ligature around his neck. He's not dead, but he takes that ligature off the little boy's neck because the little boy's crying because it's kind of hard to breathe, but he's going to be okay. So then he carries the little boy with him and he finds Miss Henderson face down in their bedroom. She's got towels wrapped around her neck. Now, he calls 911. Police arrive. Miss Henderson's DOA. Now, the little boy was taken to the hospital and they checked him out. At first, he was having some issues, but they cleared up and he's okay. Now, Dr. Sullivan, he does autopsy on Miss Henderson, 10th of March, 1994. And again, minor blunt trauma injuries, some lacerations, evidence of strangulation, cause of death, strangulation. Now, the defendant would tell the police later during his confession, when he went to that apartment complex, he had planned on killing Miss Henderson. But with the boyfriend being there, he changed his plans. And that's when he gave him the old song and dance, I just came by to tell you I'm leaving town. Well, what he did was, he just walked a few apartments over where Miss Bokum lived. Same apartment complex now. And he kills her instead. So after he's killed Miss Bokum, he goes over to Miss Henderson's apartment because he knows the boyfriend's at work. So she lets him in because he says something about he's got to leave something for the boyfriend. So then he chokes her, keeps her in a chokehold, takes her to the bedroom, tells her this is a robbery. Miss Henderson gives the defendant some money that's in a Pringles can. It's about $20. Then he rapes her. Then he strangles her to death. Now, the defendant said, yeah, I took the stereo, I put it in Miss Bokum's car, took the television set, took some food that had been delivered, and a container of coins. He sold the television and stereo for $175, and he bought him some crack cocaine. Now, it's March 1994, so this is going to be the third victim in the same month. 12th of March. So we're just talking about a few days after he's already killed 2 women. Now, Deborah Slaughter, she lives in an apartment by herself there in Charlotte. 12th of March, 1994, her mama comes by the apartment. Now, she had a key for the apartment. She was going to let herself in because her daughter's supposed to be at work. But now she gets there and she knocks on the door first. She puts her key in the lock and then she figures out the door's not locked. She sees her daughter laying on the floor. She calls 911. Now the officer gets there, finds the body, and says that the contents of her purse were scattered all over the floor. Said there was some kind of a white cloth in her mouth and a towel around her neck. And he saw a couple of puncture wounds in Miss Slaughter's chest. So 14th of March, 1994, Dr. Sullivan does the autopsy. It helps a whole lot, though, that he's doing all these autopsies because he's seen them all, so he knows what to look for. Because I'm sure by now he's getting pretty used to seeing this same M.O. I'm just sorry nobody else seemed to notice the M.O. You would think he'd have said something. But anyways, he observes ligature around Miss Slaughter's neck. A sock was balled up, stuffed in her mouth. Cause of death is ligature strangulation. And of course, there was the always present blunt trauma injuries to the face, scalp contusion. Also notices are stab wounds to the chest and abdomen. The stab wounds, several of them cause injury to the heart, and about a dozen of them cause injury to the left lung. Doctor says that any of these stab wounds alone would have been fatal. In fact, he ended up counting about 38 stab wounds. Miss Slaughter's cause of death was multiple stab wounds, along with the strangulation. Now, the defendant on this, and he told the police, he went by there, and allegedly he was going to go by there and use drugs with the victim. I don't believe that. I think he was trying to minimize his reason for being there by saying they were going to do drugs together. He went over there to rob her, to rape her and to kill her. That's what he was going to do. Now, according to the defendant, he says when he's over there, he realizes that Miss Slaughter's got some money. Well, yeah, most people do. So same thing, gets a towel, puts it around her neck, chokes her out a little bit. Now, according to this, while he's got that towel around her neck, he says that Miss Slaughter figures out that he must have been the dude that had killed the other two girls in the nearby apartments. Now, I don't know if she really did that or not, or he's just trying to justify why he had to kill her. But in any event, he rapes her. He empties out the contents of her purse. Now, while he's going through the contents of her purse, Miss Slaughter hauls off and hits him and starts hollering for the police. So then he jumps on her and he chokes her. And she's kicking and fighting. So he's having a hard time trying to choke her out. Then he uses a knife that had been in Miss Slaughter's purse, and that's when he stabbed her. So he washes the knife clean and he wipes his fingerprints off of it, throws it back in the purse. He said he left there and he went and bought crack cocaine. Now he buys the crack, he goes back to her apartment and smokes it there in her apartment. Now the second time when he's leaving, he took a coat, a baseball hat, and a butcher's knife from the apartment. Said the defendant threw all the items away after leaving the apartment. So I don't know why he did that, if he's hoping somebody will pick those items up, maybe the police will catch him and think they did it or what. I don't know. He didn't explain that. Now, following Miss Henderson's death on March the 9th, which was prior to the police finding out a bit about Miss Bokum's murder, they know the similarities between the Henderson murder and the Mack murder. Said both victims were black females, no forced entry, ligature used in both cases. I don't know how in the world somebody didn't have a light bulb go off before now, but in any event, so now the investigators there in March, they hold a meeting. They're going to start talking about anybody that's got a case where there's a strangulation. Now, it wasn't but 7 investigators, so it shouldn't have taken long for them to all figure out, hey, we've all got a case like this. Well, then they start talking about Miss Bokum, because they found her body. That's in the same apartment complex as Miss Henderson. And then they noticed the Bokum murder, same characteristics as Mack and Henderson. Now, the defendant becomes a suspect, according to the police, because they actually go back and ask family members, say, hey, what members of the family or friends, who would be some people that the victim might let into their apartment that might be somebody we need to look at? And guess what? The defendant was on every one of those lists. Now, 11th of March, they find Miss Bokum's vehicle. They dust it for prints, and they find that big old juicy palm print on the trunk lid. So they yanked the fingerprints and palm print of the defendants, because he's got a record for stealing and whatnot. And guess what they match? 12th of March, while they're looking for the defendant, they find out about Miss Slaughter being murdered. They're looking at the case. Now they're finally going, you know what, we got an MO killer here. Her case is a dead bang ringer, same as Miss Mack, Miss Henderson, and Miss Bokum. So finally, around 6 o'clock on the 12th of March, the defendant gets found out, and they arrest him. So they read him his rights, and they tell him, they go, we got photos of you using Miss Mack's ATM card at a teller machine. We got your palm print on Miss Bokum's car. So then the defendant, he confessed to the murder of Miss Love, Miss Hawk, Miss Spain, Miss Jumper, Miss Stinson, Miss Mack, Miss Bokum, Miss Henderson, and Miss Slaughter. Now, 4th April 1994, the defendant is indicted for the murder of Carolyn Love, Shauna Hawk, Audrey Ann Spain, Valencia M. Jumper, Michelle Stinson, Vanessa Little Mack, Betty Jean Bokum, Brandy June Henderson, and Deborah Slaughter. And in addition, he's also indicted for first-degree rape of Miss Love, second-degree rape of Miss Hawk, 2 counts of second-degree sexual offense against Miss Hawk, first-degree rape of Miss Spain, robbery with a dangerous weapon of Miss Spain, first-degree rape of Miss Jumper, first-degree sexual offense against Miss Jumper, first-degree rape of Miss Stinson, first-degree sexual offense against Miss Stinson, first-degree rape of Miss Mack, robbery with a dangerous weapon of Miss Mack, first-degree rape of Miss Bokum, robbery with a dangerous weapon of Miss Bokum, first-degree rape of Miss Henderson, robbery with a dangerous weapon of Miss Henderson, assault with a deadly weapon inflicting serious bodily injury against the little boy, assault on a child under 12 years of age, first-degree rape of Miss Slaughter, and robbery of a dangerous weapon of Miss Slaughter. On January the 7th, 1997, the jury found the defendant guilty of 9 counts of first-degree murder, each based on malice, premeditation, and deliberation, and under the felony murder rule. In addition, the jury found the defendant guilty of 8 counts of first-degree rape, 1 count of second-degree rape, 2 counts of first-degree sexual offense, 2 counts of second-degree sexual offense, 1 count of assault with a deadly weapon, 1 count of assault of a child under the age of 12, and 5 counts of robbery of a dangerous weapon. Now, after the capital sentencing proceedings, the jury recommended a sentence of death for each of the 9 counts of first-degree murder. Now, just to let y'all know, and this will come as no shock, even though he's got 9 death sentences, as of this recording, the defendant sits on death row in a prison in North Carolina, continuing to appeal his convictions. What a shocker.